That's what our brain, that's why those things are released in our brain, is because it is designed to have these chemical releases during orgasm so that you're bonding with your life partner. And I get asked this a lot, actually, by women, is should I send him pictures or videos of me? Today, we're going to be talking about the topic, sexual intimacy with an addict, how? That is the question, and it's a very normal question to be having if you are going through the process of recovery with a partner who has been addicted to porn or has sexual addiction, and it's escalated to possibly even other things. Rick and I, if you don't know who we are here because we have a passion to help couples overcome this together. And we have been through this ourselves. Rick had a 25-year porn addiction that he came into our relationship with that neither of us were aware of, which sounds odd unless you have gone through this yourself, and you probably know what I mean. Like, you don't really understand that you're up against an addiction until you realize that this is not going away and it's not easy, even when they choose you and don't want to have this issue in their life anymore.
Yeah, I think that's such an important just thing to notice for a lot of couples, because pornography is so normalized throughout society that a lot of people have no idea that they have an addiction. And even a lot of couples that come into a relationship where they both agree that porn is going to be okay to use in the relationship, they later find out that there's something that's up. And that was actually the situation for us, but it didn't take us long to figure out that something was wrong. And to me, I knew immediately when Katie said, "What's going on? You're not into me. We've only been in a relationship for a few months. We've hardly been intimate at all. What's going on?"
Yeah, could definitely notice a very steep, very quick drop off in his noticing me, his pursuit of me. So yeah, even when, we both realized, oh, wow, this is actually a pretty significant issue. And it wasn't something I was ever really, truly okay with, but I've been, society and my past relationship, kind of made it feel like if I had a problem with it, that was really a me thing. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to act like I was okay with it. But really deep down, as we became closer and I wanted a more strong, real relationship with you, mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm not okay with this. And especially once, you spoke up and was like, yeah, I think this is affecting the way that I, feel about you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, let's not do that then.
Yeah.
But even after that, it was not a piece of cake. It was a very, very hard journey for us. So that's why we're here.
Definitely. I think what's interesting too is that when we were at the beginning of the relationship, I didn't even realize that when the topic of pornography came up about like whether or not I used it, I didn't even realize that it was such a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
That
You're like, yeah.
There wouldn't even there was no consideration at all on my part for why that would have been offensive, or how that could have gone against the monogamous relationship, nothing like that. That right. wasn't even on my radar.
Mm-hmm. And that's crazy just to think, really now looking back on that, because monogamy means two people who are giving each other, one relationship, two people who are exclusively giving each other all of their emotional and sexual energy and attention, and all of the gratification and enjoyment comes from that relationship only. Yeah. That's what monogamy really is. So when we really identify like, okay, does porn actually fit into a monogamous relationship? It absolutely doesn't. And it makes sense why when people try to have a monogamous relationship and they have porn as a third party in that relationship, why it doesn't work,
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so much we could get into, but really for today, we're going to go into a topic that we've already talked about once, and I thought we did a great job. I was like so bummed when I found out that Facebook deleted our live that we had done.
Yeah, it was like the first video ever where they implemented their new change of if it's not saved within 30 days, then it's down.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but I love that they actually have the availability to download the video now. So that's great.
Yeah, it's easier to download the video now as long as you do it within 30 days. So we did not do that. We actually went through a life crisis, a family crisis of me, us losing my mom. And so when that happened, nothing else mattered for a while, obviously, and we weren't able to get this downloaded. So we're back. We're doing this again. We're going to try to cover a lot of the same things we covered on the last time that we did it. Probably won't be exactly the same, but yeah, we're going to definitely cover some of the same bullet points. So I want to say hi to you guys that are joining us live. Hello, Emily.
And yes, Emily, your husband can definitely join. I'm not sure if you mean like he's in person and you want to have him come in the room and watch with you. Absolutely.
She probably means the group, I would think.
If you mean like join the group and watch right now,
yes.
I don't know that anybody's going to be able to accept him in while this is live here.
But in general, he can join the group and then watch the replay. Yep. Yes, and any future lives.
Or if he's with you, you can bring him on in the room.
Yep. So hi, Emily. Good to have you. I know you and I messaged earlier. I'm glad you were able to see the notification. Just want to say to Sabrina, who asked us to tag you live, I couldn't tag you for some reason. I don't know if it's privacy settings on your account or whatnot, but just make sure to friend me maybe, and then maybe in the future I'll be able to tag you. Hello also to Crystal, and yeah, anybody else seeing us live. It's okay, Crystal, that you say you're going to miss part of it. We'll have the replay up. No worries.
Hello to everyone watching the replay.
Yes. So hopefully this is going to be really helpful for you. Let's start out by discussing what it was like for us when we were going through our process when it came to intimacy. And I think we're a little sideways. I don't know.
No, it's just our... It's not the camera. It's just maybe we're sideways.
Well,
it'll be okay.
Yeah, hopefully you can make sense of what we're saying, even if we're sideways. So when we were going through our process, for me, it's going to be completely different as far as our experiences on each side of this. So I'll share for me what it was like. Having had been programmed myself through the years that porn was totally acceptable and that it actually was what most people kind of like modeled their sex life after, or should even, it was in my brain something that I needed to live up to. Like I needed to make sure that my husband's sex life was as fulfilling as what was on the screen, or else he obviously would lose interest in me and I wasn't good enough. And, I needed to make sure that I cared about all of these fantasies that he, would want. And then when I say he, I am talking about my husband now, and I'm talking about my past relationship. I was married for I was married for 15, in a relationship for 20 years. And this is the belief system that I kind of had in my brain about intimacy, about sexual intimacy at that point. So what it looked like in our process, and suddenly when now I'm realizing that I have my husband and fiance at the time was an addict, boyfriend and then fiance, is a sex addict or a porn addict. I'm like, well, I need to make sure that I'm living up to these things so that he won't do that anymore, because we're both on the same side of this. Like we both want to beat this addiction. So therefore that means I need to compete with this, and I need to be interested all the time. I need to pursue him all the time. I need to wear all the sexy clothing. I need to make sure my body is perfect. Like that. This was the weight that I put on myself in our process at the beginning. And it was awful, because at the same time, as I'm trying to do and be all of these perfect things, I'm also feeling extremely disconnected emotionally from you, because I know that you're struggling with all of these thoughts and feelings of arousal and attraction towards people that aren't me. And it was, and the relapses and the betrayals, and I'm broken, I'm hurting, I'm struggling with my self-esteem. It's like that. It doesn't work in the brain of a woman to feel confident and pursue sexually and try to perform in all these ways while being broken down and completely destroyed by their partner's betrayals. Like it was so difficult for me to just make sense of all of that in my head, and it felt torturous. That's what intimacy was like for me. And I don't even think you probably had any idea. No. Because I'm trying to essentially perform. Mm-hmm. But as you've seen, things have changed a lot over time with our intimacy, and that's not me anymore. You don't see me doing those things anymore, because that never was really me to begin with.
Yeah. Definitely. And in my own version, I was also performing, but in an entirely different way. So I'd been in very few serious relationships throughout my life until I met Katie. And so also I didn't have an upbringing where I really had any sort of sex education or, kind of guidance from my mom or especially my stepdad. A whole lot of history there with him. But yeah, I didn't receive any guidance on what it really looked like or what it meant to be intimate with a woman. And so everything that I learned about what it means to be intimate with a woman was learned through watching pornography from about the age of 9 years old. And so in a sense, I was also performing when it came to being intimate with Katie at the beginning of our relationship, because I thought that I had to live up to these different expectations based on the different videos that I watched of what it meant to be intimate with somebody. And so I wasn't even actually present with Katie. I was in my own head trying to basically enact and kind of portray a character that I had seen that was mentally stimulating me instead of actually being present and being in the moment with Katie. So that's kind of the two dynamics that really come to play from the man's side of what's the journey that we need to make in order to actually have an intimate relationship where we're connecting only with our partner and it's not being influenced with something like pornography.
Yeah. If you think about what you're just saying, you're performing, you're imagining something that's not really us, not really me, and not really you even.
Yep.
And your sex is defined by fantasy and has actually pretty much nothing to do with your real relationship. And for me, I am acting as if I'm into this and I'm confident, when in reality I'm completely opposite. I'm feeling afraid of what you're thinking about. I'm feeling insecure about my body, that I'm not good enough. I'm feeling like I have to do this as an obligation in order to help keep you faithful to me, which it's not working anyways. Right. So none of that is what sexual intimacy actually should be. That's not sexual intimacy at all. That is an act. That's all that is chasing a euphoric high, at least for the man and for the women too, because, there is the element of that too. But in the process, you're looking for the emotional connection, but of course you're not going to get it because it's not what you're actually doing.
Right.
So it's completely defeating the purpose. So that really is important to take note of in your mind as you guys are going through a recovery journey where you're wanting to work towards something completely different than that. You're looking for sex to be completely redefined.
Yeah. And I think that just from the man's perspective, as we're kind of projecting out what was it like at the beginning of the relationship, there's really kind of like three main points where you're at the beginning of the relationship, when you're in active recovery, and then what things are like once you've fully reprogrammed and you can actually be intimate with your partner. And so as we kind of take that step from what it was like at the beginning of the process for me into what it was like when we were in recovery, is there was still a lot of unwanted and intrusive thoughts that I had that were coming in about other people that I would see throughout my day, or it could be something that I saw from in the past and pornography, whatever the situation was. And so at the beginning of the relationship, I didn't even realize how much I was performing and how much of the intercourse that I was having was more mental stimulation of really trying to project the types of feelings that I would have when I'd be fantasizing and masturbating to other women. And so it's like I wouldn't even actually be paying attention to what things felt like physically, sensationally. That requires us to be present. So I wasn't even in that side of my brain. And a lot of times Katie would actually make comments to me about the fact that I was looking through her when we were being intimate. And she's like, are you even present with me? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's, I think, one of the big things that really stands out to me looking back is that that's the entire difference between when you're being intimate with somebody who's still addicted and still struggling to not allow those intrusive thoughts to be the main focus and attention and centerpiece when you're being intimate, is that they're not going to be fully present. And so if you're going to even consider, do I want to be intimate with this person, you should be working towards being present and being intimate where you're the only thing that's on their mind.
Yeah. And that's actually something I wanted to share too, is that, how do you go from that point A to point B? Like, does that mean, Katie and Rick, that I shouldn't be intimate with my partner in the recovery process? And the answer is no, because the way that we make progress with anything is practice, right? And what practice is doing is it is rewiring the brain. That's the name of our company, Rewire for Success. And the reason that that's the name of our company is because everything that we do when it comes to helping people to transform their lives and transform their relationship has to do with the neurological side of things, the neuroscience behind what does it mean to rewire the brain, and how do we do that? How do we actually transform so that this is no longer something that's even a pull or desire anymore, and that there's no fear anymore that this is going to come back into our life and destroy our relationship, right? Like, you have to, in order for that to be true, you have to completely rewire the brain. So what it takes to do that is, in part, this is simplifying very much, a very complex process, making it very simple, but practice is one of the most important parts of that. So even in intimacy, when we are working towards going from everything being about the euphoric high, the
mental stimulation,
fantasy, yep. And we're working towards sex being something that is about emotional connection, intimacy, and more than just dopamine, but
being present, feeling physical sensations.
Right. And feeling closeness, connection, and due to the brain chemicals being released through oxytocin, vasopressin, and dopamine, but also serotonin, right? Like all the different things that are actually creating the way it's designed to do, right? That's what our brain, that's why those things are released in our brain, is because it is designed to have these chemical releases during orgasm so that you're bonding with your life partner and creating this exclusive, safe, secure, attached relationship, right? So when we go from A to B like that, you don't get there by not doing it. Right. You don't get there by not having sex. So you do have to have sex, but you just have to know what work should I be doing in that process when we are having sex in our recovery journey.
Right. I just want to emphasize too that as Katie's talking about the difference between what it does look like or what it doesn't look like and what it does look like, there's literally two different reward systems that are being activated in the brain. So quite literally, for the addict, sex as an addict is completely different than sex as not an addict. So
it will feel completely different.
Right. It's going to feel completely different. And so if the expectation that they have going into intimacy is that it's not living up to an expectation that they have, well, their expectation is rooted in maybe porn or sex addiction.
Correct.
And not in reality of being present, learning what it means to be intimate in a relationship.
Correct. Yeah, that's a really important point to make. We can probably talk on that itself for quite a while. But let's go into the next bullet point where we talk about like what not to do for each of them. Do you want to start, or do you want to think about it?
What not to do? Don't go into this without a plan. Meaning, one of the biggest things that is needed in multiple areas with couples going through recovery is shared expectations. And so there should definitely be shared expectations going into being intimate with your partner, and, setting up some ground rules like, hey, we're going to keep the lights on because it's really important to me that you are staying present. You're doing what you need to do to allow any sort of unwanted thoughts that are coming in.
They could be dim.
They could be dim, but yeah. Personally, for you, what's going to help you feel safe in that situation and be able to see for yourself and build evidence that your partner is actually focusing on you, they're being present, they're doing what they need to do. Because especially for men who suffer from porn-induced erectile dysfunction, it's going to be a really big thing for them to be able to learn how to be present in the situation. So there should definitely be expectations that are shared about ground rules of whether or not the lights are going to be turned on, how high are they going to be turned on. If there's break in eye contact and it looks like they're staring through you, is the expectation that you guys are going to stop, and there's an agreement that that's what's best for the relationship. just helps to really talk through things. And sometimes you don't know that there needs to be a shared expectation until you get into a situation where it kind of breaks out into an argument or a disagreement. And anytime that happens, that's basically your red flag indicator of we need to create a shared expectation of what's going to happen in this situation.
Or maybe it's just a significant trigger that happens for one or both partners.
Right, which could be part of the shared expectation of, hey, if you have a severe trigger, you know, me as the guy, I might be really disappointed because I had all this anticipation built up and I really enjoy being intimate with you, even if I don't know how to do that at a full capacity without being addicted yet. As my partner, that is something that I enjoy, so it makes sense that there's going to be some frustration, some disappointment.
If I were to speak up and say we need to pause or stop.
Right. And so you could even have a shared expectation there of like, okay, well, you know, if you get a trigger and I get disappointed, neither one of us are going to shame each other. Neither one of us are going to talk poorly to one another because of the experience that we're having in that moment. We're going to use that as an opportunity to actually learn more about each other and what it is that we're experiencing and focus on the actual emotional processing that we're doing at that time.
Yeah. So don't go into it without a plan. I like that. That's good. And I would say for women, I would say don't buy into the belief that you have to compete. One of the things that I didn't know, and I get asked this a lot actually by women, is should I send him pictures or videos of me? Because that way he's thinking about me and during the day, or if he's going to masturbate, whatnot. And, or, you know, another question is, should I try to wear really sexy lingerie? Should I try and, you know, fulfill fantasies that he's got? Like, basically, the woman is trying to become the porn replacement. And that is not what you actually want. You might think you do, but it's not what you want. And there's the other side of this, that you're actually not replacing it. What you're doing is you're continuing to exacerbate the issue in his brain. You're continuing to activate the same pathways because that's not you. Like a picture of you, you know, sure, you might think it's you, but it's a picture of you. And that is not you. You are who you are in person in real life interactions. So if you're giving him a video or pictures, or you're trying to fulfill a fantasy, that's not you. Now, I'm not saying that you can never later on have an enjoyment with fantasies that you guys decide that's not from porn that you want to share and enjoy together. That's different, right? Because it's in person and you both agree that that's something that you would like to try or whatnot. That's fine. That's going to be for every couple to kind of decide for themselves where those limits are. But when you're in recovery from porn, the idea is that you want a complete reset of any definition that has previously come from porn, and you want to redefine sex as something that the two of you share exclusively together in real life, that sex is now about you two being intimate and creating this exclusivity together that no one else gets to be a part of, right? Like that is the whole redefining that's having to happen. So you don't want to be sending pictures. You don't want to be sending videos. You don't want to be activating porn pathways in his brain. That's going to make it harder for him to completely, you know, focus on you and being present. Yeah, you want to make sure that you're cutting all that stuff out and creating a brand new focus on what sex is all about.
And then I'd say one thing that, you know, can be definitely optional between couples depending on your specific situation, but absolutely consider for the guy no masturbation for 90 days or even no sexual intimacy for 90 days. And even beyond 90 days, my personal recommendation would be no masturbation, because the body, and when you think about intimacy from a guy's perspective, you know, it's really about our physical body and our brain. There's a brain-body connection. And if the old pathways are all focused on mental stimulation and fantasy and not being present, the opposite of that for actual intimacy that we get to enjoy with our partner is going to require us to be present, where we're not thinking about the past, the future, anything else that's on our mind. Sometimes you might have just like things come up from your day, which is totally different. But even then you have to be like, okay, hold on, I just need a minute to allow myself to let these different thoughts go. But basically, you have to be present in the moment, focused on your partner, and really retraining your body what it means to be turned on by your partner.
Right, because sexual arousal, when you're masturbating, you're training your brain to be aroused by you.
Your brain is connected to your spinal cord. Your spinal cord has all these nerves that are spreading throughout your body and especially highly concentrated in the genitalia. And so literally your brain has been wired and trained what it feels like to be turned on by your hand with masturbation. Mm-hmm.
And
it's
that
your
defines
hand, the size of your hand, the pressure, all of that is what your brain has learned turns you on. And so a lot of guys who suffer from PIED don't know, and this isn't for everybody, obviously you have to talk to a medical professional to rule out other things, but for a lot of guys, the PIED that they have can simply be overcome by abstinence from sexual activity and masturbation, and then exclusive intimacy with their partner where she's the only one who is touching him and allowed to be doing any sort of arousing acts to him. Mm-hmm. Because then those nerve endings that are in the genitalia, when they are not getting the stimulation from your own hand, then it has to be retrained what it feels like for somebody else to actually turn you on. Mm-hmm. And that in itself is going to require you to be present. So if you're a couple out there, you're struggling with PIED, that would be a number one recommendation that I would have personally would be
no masturbation, and obviously this is going to take rewiring of the brain, but no fantasy either. Mm-hmm. Because that's the other problem, is that this is a harder addiction for people to overcome even than drug addiction because of the ease of access, not only through the internet and the phones and all that stuff, but through the brain. Like men are able to create just as arousing, responses in the brain and get that dopaminergic, those pathways activated just by the thoughts that they have in fantasy. So that, again, is going to desensitize men from their partner because their partner is not a fantasy. They are not a super stimulus. They are a real life human being. And that is not the same as the what the brain has been trained to be aroused by with fantasy. And it can't compete. It'll never be able to compete with fantasy or porn or any other super stimulus. And it doesn't need to. It as in them, they, women, real life human beings do not. Your partner does not need to compete with those things because it is, they need to be the winner already. And when they are, when your partner is the one person that you allow these things for, when everything else is no longer something that you allow, which is not just a decision, it's a process. So I know that's easier said than done because it is quite the process. But when that does happen, your partner becomes the most incredibly arousing, most fulfilling person you could possibly ever imagine. And there's no competition anymore. Like they've already won because that's the only person you've allowed those things for. And the fulfillment of that and the attraction that can be there, it's unparalleled. Like it's unbelievable. And this is something that most men and women who are in relationships like this have never gotten to experience. Mm-hmm. 100%. So anything else that we want them to know and what not to do in this process?
I'd say what not to do, don't do it alone. I think make sure that you're having conversations with people who are either like licensed therapists or support groups. Find some sort of community where you can talk to people who've either been through this or are going through this so that you're not alone in the process. Mm-hmm. Because one of the things, especially with an addict's brain, like there are so many times throughout our process that my brain would just come up with ideas that were basically a way to avoid whatever discomfort there was about conflict that there was in the relationship. And it would come up with some other way to try and basically
justify
or come up with a way that still wouldn't be actually being present in the bedroom. Like, oh, well, maybe if we try something different and we just try a different position and you're not looking at me and, maybe this position is going to be better than the other one. And for the addict and addict brain, what really might be going on there is that he's thinking, well, if we're in a different position and she can't see me, and then I can just fantasize, and then there's the lies to yourself about, well, one day I'm going to be working towards this, but right now I just want to be intimate with her, and I want to get to feel close and connected with her by having sex with her. So there's different thoughts like that can come up for the addict, that they'll buy into the rationalization and justifications for why it's okay to do something that actually isn't okay. So that's why I say definitely be talking with people about the different ideas that come up in the relationship to figure out, okay, are these actually good ideas, or are these is there something here that I should know about that I just don't know to ask the right questions?
Right. There's a lot of things in this process that on your side, that was the case, where your brain came up with these different ideas of, well, this isn't porn, so this is okay. Mm-hmm. Or, well, in this case, there's tons of different things that came up in our process like that. So whether it's in the bedroom,
is different, and it's minimized in my mind, so therefore it's okay because it's progress.
Right. And what that actually is it's the addiction. It's the brain suffering from this addiction and it looking for ways to still get that fix. Mm-hmm. And once you are no longer suffering from addiction, those things just go away. So that's the good news. But yeah, you don't want to do this alone. You definitely need to have guidance from people who understand what you're going through on both sides of this experience. And this is a good place for a shameless plug for our groups. We have groups every single Friday night. They are at 7 p.m. Eastern for women, and all women. And it is the betrayed partner. So we don't work with women who are addicts. Unfortunately, that's not our niche, because it's not what we experienced and went through. Plus, we want to create a really safe environment for those women who are the betrayed partners to know that they're in a group among people that get what they're going through and are going through similar things. So 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern is for the women, and 8:15 p.m. Eastern is for men. So if that's something where you're looking for that support from people who can give you hope and encouragement, this is not a group where we're all just talking about how hard this is and everybody's failing and it's okay and sugarcoating it. No, this is a group where we are literally helping people understand the process of what it actually takes to overcome this and create healing and secure attachment in the relationship. So yes, this is something absolutely I highly recommend for anybody going through this. Get into a group like ours and get the support that you need so that you have an idea of what it actually is going to take to go the direction and have the trajectory that you want. Is there anything more? To get signed up for those groups, you can go to our website at www.rewire4success, and that's the number 4, rewire4success.life. Not .com, .life, and then just click on support, I believe, at the top, and that's going to take you right to get signed up for those groups.
Mm-hmm. And we do also offer a 50% off discount for your first month, so you can give it a test drive, and the code for that is 50 off support. Yep,
50OFF SUPPORT. Okay, and as we're going to finish up with our last point here that we're going to talk about, if you have any questions on anything that we've shared today, feel free to drop them in the chat, because we will look and try to answer them here before we sign off. So what was the last bullet point? Was we were going to say what to expect with intimacy as recovery progresses. Yes, that's a really good question. So
basically, as you're implementing the strategies that we already talked through about being more present, setting ground rules, having expectations, what you're going to see as you're doing those things consistently over time is you're going to see that there's more natural ability for your partner to connect with you, be present in terms of the woman looking at the guy, be present, and the experience is going to be completely different for each of you. And for the guy specifically, if you were like me, I walked around the house and I never noticed Katie, not once. When we met, she was in the best shape of her life. And to think that now we both put on a considerable amount of weight and I'm more attracted to her now than I was 6 years ago when we first met, when she was in the best shape of her life. I notice her more now than I ever did in the past. I never had any natural cravings for her to want to be intimate with her. And I know that can vary from addict to addict, So my question to those addicts who say, well, I do have cravings for her, or sometimes the woman will say, well, he does crave me and he does come on to me. If there is an addiction to pornography or sex, my question would be, well, let's go a little bit deeper. What's actually going on in his head? Is it you, or is it the idea of doing specific things with you that's actually fulfilling other mental stimulation and fantasies that he has going on?
Or the objectification of you in thoughts that have to do with his fantasies or porn, right? Yep. Like that's actually not you either. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, some really good points there. For me, I'd say what to expect in the process. One of the things that we hear a lot when couplers are going through our program and we're talking about like, okay, he's not masturbating anymore. He's been sober for this amount of time. Things are going pretty well. He's being a lot more vulnerable and transparent about his private thoughts. Like we're having good, deep communication. But the problem ends up being that, and we went through this too, where there's no sexual interest anymore. Mm-hmm. And it leaves a woman feeling very lost, confused, lack of trust that he's actually sober and refraining from masturbation, because it's kind of like, we've always heard the term like, well, he's got to get it from somewhere. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard that saying, but that saying is so harmful because it makes us believe that, first of all, that orgasm is a life and death, like a basic need like food or water. It is not. No one's died from not having an orgasm. So, when that happens, though, it makes this understandable fear come up for women that, well, maybe he really isn't attracted to me, or maybe he actually is lying to me and he's not sober. So just to expect this in the process, men will go through a period of time where they may, and this is pretty common, just lose interest completely in sex. And it's because they've completely cut out what used to be what sex was, right? That now the brain is beginning to realize that's not what I want. I don't want to chase euphoric highs. I don't want to be aroused by other women. I don't want to be struggling with thoughts of other people and wanting to masturbate. So the brain will like literally just kind of shut it all off. Mm-hmm. And that you would think that would just automatically translate to, oh, I want my partner. But no, I mean, the brain's been programmed that this is what's arousing. Right. So it doesn't make sense that this all of a sudden is arousing because the programming for that has not happened yet. So that's the really important knowledge to also have about this process, is there is actual programming that needs to happen to train the brain to be aroused for a real life partner consistently. And again, it's when I say consistently, what I mean is the same person over and over and over, that's still somebody that can be very attractive and arousing, because the brain's used to being programmed for novelty and for change and different stimulations, different people, things like that. Yeah,
thank you for putting an emphasis on that point, because that's really important to know that, it will take time. So that's what to expect as you're progressing, is that your partner will become more and more easily stimulated by you, and he's going to have more actual natural cravings for you.
With the right work.
Right.
Like the right intentional decisions, actions, work mentally and physically with your partner.
Yeah,
so
reframings and emotional processings.
Yeah, and experiences, sexual intimacy that's different. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. That's why we can't stress enough to get in support groups and, get a structured program, get a therapist. There's so much that goes into this. You don't want to do it on your own and just be feeling your way in the dark, hoping that you figure things out.
Right. So with that being said, also know that we not only have our Friday support groups for men and women separately, we also have a 6-month intensive program called Relationship Rebuild. And it is literally the way to lay out this recovery journey in a structured week-by-week way that helps you know exactly what steps you need to be taking to overcome this together. We work with couples who have, all the way from porn addiction to infidelity and sexual addiction, all the root of that is really the same and the solution is the same. So, if that's something where you guys are going through that and you're suffering, not knowing, maybe you're getting help, you're seeing therapists, but it's not seeming to be making the progress you want. It kind of makes sense if you think about how much is really involved in the complexity of overcoming this, that there really needs to be a very intentional daily work happening in this on this every single day. And once a week therapy is just not going to cut it for that.
I think that's such an important piece because therapy is amazing. It does a lot of great things, especially with emotional reprocessing. But it doesn't give you all the intricacies of what's actually going on in the relationship on a day-to-day level. Like showing up once a week isn't going to give you that level of input that you need to feel confident in what it is that's going on in the relationship.
Yeah, the trust just doesn't build either especially if they're doing individual therapy. You don't see each other's process. You don't understand how those changes are actually taking place if they are. So all that being said, if you want to talk with our recovery advisors, we have Tate Pierce and we have Asia Smith, and he and she are incredible human beings that have so much just wisdom in these areas.
And a passion for helping couples who are going through this.
And a passion for helping couples, yes. And they are also licensed therapists. So they are a part of our team, and we want you to meet with them for a free 30-minute clarity call so that you can share with them your story. Be able to have them kind of help you identify, like, where are the roadblocks in our recovery process? Like, where are we missing pieces to this puzzle? So they can meet with you, kind of give you their best insights and advice in that 30-minute call. And then if it makes sense and seems like it might be a good time to talk about our program and what we have to offer, how it could be a perfect solution for what it is that you guys are going through. If it makes sense, we'll talk about that next. But that first call, it's not a sales call. It's just a time for them to hear your story and give you their best insights and advice. And then we can invite you to a second call if the program is something that you're interested in. To book that call, you can go to our website again, rewireforsuccess.life, and there's a link at the top right to book a call, or reach out to Tate or Asia if maybe you've been talking with them previously. Reach out and book the call directly with them.
Yeah.
All right, take care. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend.